Communications Authority of Kenya.
For the past 3 weeks, we've been looking at the objectives and achievements of the initiative aimed at connecting Kenyans in unserved and underserved areas.
Kazi yangu kama mzee wa nyumba 10 kuhakikisha watu wanaelewana.
Imenipatia wateja kisha hata mapato pia imeongezeka.
As we conclude this series,
by 2022 actually, from a voice perspective, we expect to have covered 99% of the unserved populations.
Once we have all these places covered, what will the fund be used for?
We need to have a joint engagement with all the stakeholders.
Welcome, I'm your host Alex Chamwada, and before we proceed, here is our fact sheet segment.
On our fact sheet today, we look at the mobile money sector, and according to the Communications Authority of Kenya, there has been a steady growth in mobile money service over the years. Statistics indicate that the total mobile money service subscriptions grew by 11.5% from about 24 million subscribers in June 2013 to about 28 million subscribers in June 2017. As at the end of the third quarter of the 2018-2019 financial year, active mobile money transfer subscriptions stood at 32 million, while the number of agents stood at 223,084. In the 2018-2019 financial year, 5 operators offered mobile money services in Kenya. The operators are Safaricom Limited, Telcom Kenya Limited, Airtel Networks Kenya Limited, Finserv Limited, and Mobile Pay Limited. The value of transactions, including sending and withdrawing, stood at about 2 trillion between January and March 2019, meaning mobile money users made transactions worth that much only within a period of 3 months. And that's our fact sheet. My name is Lavenda Amunga.
It's been a long journey. At some point, to the first mobile phone that used satellite in the early 90s, to the coming of the internet in 1995. Imagine life without mobile telephony. Imagine life without the internet. From day-to-day activities to self-employment. The gains are not only timeless, but also borderless. And here is a recap of what connected Kenyans shared with us in various parts of the country on the impact of improved connectivity in areas considered unserved and underserved.
Napata mapato zaidi kushinda ile wakati hatukuwa na network. Sasa tuko na mwaka 2 kama tuko na network. Haisi tumekuwa afadhali.
Hatukuwa hata tunajua kama kuna kitu inaitwa Twitter. So now we are tweeting. You tweet your colleague, ana tweet mwingine, kama ni ng'ombe zimeibiwa unaona ni haraka sana tunasikamata. Tumetengeneza vikundi vya WhatsApp groups. Tunawasiliana kwa haraka sana.
Ninipatia kazi. Mimi ninakaa tu hapo, ninaishi tu hapo kwa plot ya karibu na hiyo bosta. Sasa nilikaa tu hapo, walipoanza kujanga hiyo, sasa mimi ndio nilikuwa ninawapikia watu wao wa kazi chakula. Sasa ninafanya huku safari kwa wananilipa vizuri. Ni mimi ndio ninaibeba kifunguo ya hapo. Ni mimi ndio security wa huku.
At times people maybe they experience problems like let's say a serious snake bite. But due to lack of communication, they could not even call for an ambulance because we usually have an ambulance here at our health facility. So it becomes a terrible thing. You couldn't know who is suffering a few kilometers away from the health facility. Currently, we are very happy because network is all over. People call in case there is an emergency, then we respond positively.
Unapokuwa na simu hivi sasa,
Mteja kupatikana inapatikana kwa njia ya haraka. Unapiga simu na mnaongea na yeye na unaambia viazi ndio unaye au vitunguu au mboga au saumu. Kwanza mimi ni mkulima wa saumu.
Kitu kingine imeleta maendeleo kabisa. Maendeleo imekuja kabisa. Change, big change. Kwa sababu tarehe 13 Jumamosi nilikuwa ile interview ya census pale Keserian Ajam. Na nilipata ujumbe usiku saa 4 ya usiku kwamba natakikana saa 3 Jumamosi Keserian, ambayo wakati wa hatukuwa na hii communication hatukuwa tunapata ujumbe kama hizo.
Siku hizi mambo mingi sana unafanywa kwa M-Pesa, unalipwa kwa M-Pesa. Hata unasauza ng'ombe yako kwa WhatsApp, pesa inaingia kwa simu yako. Hata siku hizi mchungaji ule anachunga ng'ombe akipotea, anapiga simu nyumbani, kujeni mnisaidie ng'ombe fulani amepotea. Ama simba akikula ng'ombe, tunapikiwa simu, mkuje tuangalie, tukuje tusaidie. Sasa amelete utofauti kubwa sana. Sasa wakati tumepata hii communication ya Safaricom, sasa ukiwa ndani ya bedroom yako unafanya kila kitu. Unafanya transaction, unafanya biashara. Sasa amelete changes mingi sana within our community.
Dr. Alex Gakuru, the chairman of the ICT Association of Kenya that deals with rights of consumers, underscores the importance of ICT in service delivery.
For example, so many government services now have gone online. And if you live in a place, even in urban areas, that is underserved, for whatever reasons that the operators feel is not profitable for them, then you are disadvantaged. You'd have to travel far, or you have to look for connectivity. And the problem is not that you live in the wrong place. It's because the commercial companies that provide these services deemed your area unprofitable, so they left it. For whatever reasons, the commercial dictates made them decide so. So therefore, it was seen necessary that we need to have universal coverage.
In Mkondoni sublocation, Malindi sub-county, in Kilifi County, we find Frederick Mwambodze going on with his domestic chores. Little did we know that he is such an influential person in the village. Frederick is a member of the community policing group under a government initiative known as Nyumba Kumi.
Kwa mfano kuwa kuna shida yote, huwa unaweza tu mjulisha chifu mara moja. Chifu naye anaweza pigia maskari kwa sababu ya network. Maana kwa hakuna network, hata mara nyingine huwa unaweza kuwa kuna shida fulani na kawa hatamfikia hata chifu akawa hatajua. Kitambo ilikuwa shida, kuna mambo maafa sana yanatokea kwa sababu kunaweza kuwa kuna jambo fulani baya na ukiangalia simu hivi network iko na shida. Kitambo ilikuwa ni nyingi sana, lakini sasa hii imepungua sana. Hata naweza maliza hata mwaka hutasikia mambo yote mabaya. Kwa sababu sasa hii imekuwa na hiyo strong network.
The initiative has helped enhance security here in Malindi constituency. And here we are in Milore sublocation, Ganze sub-county in Ganze constituency. Milore Primary School, which hosts a Safaricom mast, is one of the schools that have benefited a great deal from the Voice Infrastructure and Services project.
As at now, the ones we are doing is online registration, and when you Google any information, it is now very easy after the booster has been put in place. Previously, it wasn't possible. We used to go to cyber to capture some information, but it is now very easy, even using a tablet or a laptop, it is okay.
The school can now access government services at the touch of a button. Just outside the gate of the school, we meet a shopkeeper who shares her experience too.
Mimi naitwa Zainab Suleiman Godana kutoka mzaliwa Kilifi, naishi Mombasa. Lakini nimejifikisha hapa kwa biashara, lakini kuishi hapa kwa network niko mzuri, natuma pesa, natumia bila shida, yani nikitokea pande hii yote natumia network niko sawa.
The gains are felt even in subsistence farming.
Mara nyingi huwa tuna kama vile masola, tunawasiliana nje, M-Pesa, wakati wa kilimo tunazungumza na kupeleka mapesa mahali popote.
At the nearby shopping center, we hear similar stories.
Kama mimi mfanya biashara, imenisaidia upande wa M-Pesa, pia upande wa communication, kwa sababu nikiwa mtu wa biashara, saa zingine mimi hucommunicate na wale customer wangu hapa ili wapate vitu vya duka.
Our next stop is the Weru Technical and Vocational College in Baolala sublocation, Malindi Sub-County, Malindi constituency.
The most important thing is to access material in several websites, especially the educational material. We can even get the teaching books, some lessons related to the courses we are doing here, and enabling our students to do some research. That's good network in our institution, besides the normal telephone conversation.
Yes, ICT is key here, this being a technical and vocational college.
The connectivity was also hindering us into automating our systems. So we are in the process of acquiring some management information system, which will also enable now us to interact with the other stakeholders easily, like parents and even students.
On that note, we take a short break. Up next,
by 2022, actually, from a voice perspective, we expect to have covered 99% of the unserved populations.
Once we have all these places covered, what will the fund be used for?
We need to have a joint engagement with all the stakeholders.
Stay with us.
You are watching the Chamwada Report, brought to you by the Communications Authority of Kenya.
Welcome back. This is the last leg of our series, Connecting Kenyans, in which we've been looking at the achievements of the Universal Service Fund projects driven by Communications Authority of Kenya and aimed at connecting unserved and underserved areas in Kenya. As we wind up, what is the way forward regarding the challenges facing the initiative?
Let's begin with a recap of the baseline survey that was done before Phase 1 of the USF Voice Infrastructure and Services project was rolled out. The study, conducted in 2016, established that 94.4% of the Kenyan population was covered by 2G network, leaving out 5.6% of the population with no access to voice communication services. The study further showed that 164 out of a total of 7,149 sublocations in the country were totally uncovered, while a further 418 had less than 50% of their populations covered by 2G. In other words, the voice communication project targeted to connect 2.6 million Kenyans to mobile network coverage. Phase 1 of the project has covered 320,000 people out of those targeted and translates to 12.3%. The question is, what next in the campaign to bridge the digital divide?
The 5-year strategy that we have for implementation, it actually proposes that from 2017-18 is the starting point, and we go from that period to 18 to 2022. And if you look at the first year is to do the implementation of a proportion of the whole project. Within the 5 years, the target is to have 99% coverage of the population with voice services. But we've broken it down over the 5 years, and currently what we have done covers over 12% of the target population. So the next year we cover another percentage. By 2022, we'll have full coverage of the identified ICT access gaps from a voice perspective.
Again, as a quick reminder, the USF is primarily supported through contribution from licensees providing communication services on commercial basis. Currently, the licensees are required to contribute 0.5% of their gross turnover generated from CA's licensed services. As at the end of the 2017-2018 financial year, The total collection was 9.1 billion shillings, including 1 billion shilling seed money from the Communications Authority of Kenya. When bids were floated for phase 1 of the project, only Safaricom and Telkom Kenya participated and have both rolled out base stations to boost network in the target areas.
In terms of recommendations, we really feel that it is important for the policymakers to consider including the contributors. Even if they don't want to include us directly, they must have people who represent a real market position of what that money can be used for and how it can be used. We think that's a very important requirement.
We need to find a way of releasing funds a bit faster, so that when we do the project, you are not waiting long into, because the cash flow issue sometimes may delay some project. So we need to agree with CA how we can fast track the issue of, so they are funding, yes, but how do they release funds? That needs to be improved so that we can do the projects a lot faster.
Safaricom also recommends that the project should now move beyond base stations.
Can we now talk about different technologies? Are we trying to make sure that everyone in Kenya has access to at least 3G, and maybe as we move towards 4G in terms of technology? Can we then focus more on really critical areas such as health and such as education, so that we feel we are contributing to something that is helping the country, as opposed to just making another contribution to a fund which doesn't help too much.
How about the way forward regarding the challenges the operators faced when rolling out phase 1 of the project? The challenges ranged from logistics to resistance or too many demands from communities in target areas, demands that are not related to the project.
We need to have a joint engagement with all the stakeholders, and it should be driven by CA. So we have operators, we have CA, and then we have the other stakeholders. Talk to these communities before we actually go to implement projects. So that's not the operators, it is not our partners who actually are doing this education. It will make it a lot easier to implement.
Actually, some of the lessons we've learned is that community engagement has been an area that we need to improve on, because sometimes you go to a community and the community doesn't understand who you are, why you are there, why you want to do stuff in their area, and so they can start resisting. Some have even said, like in Turkana, in some areas, that they want to be given water first. So we need to improve on community engagement, to work with the county leadership, both governors and county commissioners, so that we can be able to build a better, a better access, because that has presented delays. When you cannot be able to access the community to be able to start the project, when the people we commission go in and then they are delayed, of course it delays the services.
In a nutshell, the operators who have participated in phase 1 of the project feel the idea is good and can yield better results if the challenges identified can be dealt with.
The way we look at it as Safaricom is, there are Kenyans there, we have to cover them. The business sense is something we'll come to a bit later. Why we may not have covered them in the first place is because it's hard. Yeah, like I said, if we had thought of covering an area with 5 towers, to move to the 6th and the 7th and the 8th is a bit tough for us. But with the USF coming in, we're happy to take the challenge from the fund and build those extra towers and cover the people. Some of them surprise us. They become very good for business. You find that communities start converging around communication centers. And this is something we've seen as we've rolled out our network over time. It's actually transformational in terms of, it's a very innate human need for people to be within our communication areas, especially in underserved places.
The statistic we have today, so we have traffic in Alangs, which we measure in terms of utilization. So I would say out of the 13 sites, 40% of them, which is 5 sites, are actually viable. It's producing traffic just like any other site in any part of the network today. But in terms of actual population, that's a number that we need to compute, find a way of computing based on the traffic that they have generated.
The Communications Authority of Kenya emphasizes that no Kenyan should be left behind when it comes to mobile connectivity.
Given the learnings we've had from phase 1, I would say we are confident to be able to move forward with a faster pace in the next phase and to be able to deliver to cover 99% of Kenyans who are unserved to the year 2022. You know, also you have to recognize that in Kenya there is a question of geography. Our priority is the population, because in terms of expansiveness, Kenya is very wide, and some of the unserved areas, geographically, to cover them would cost a lot, and they're very wide. So we focus on where there is population.
Great. We've come to the end of the show. We are glad you followed the series. We hope you found it informative. And remember, the conversation continues. Our hashtag is Connecting Kenyans. You can also view the entire series on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the entire Chams Media crew that made this series possible and our broadcasting partner, KTN News, many thanks for watching.
License and regulate mobile telecom operators, TV and radio broadcasters, postal and courier operators. All this to open up a world of choice for you. Game iko juu na CA, the Communications Authority of Kenya, CA, opening your world.